Good morning and welcome back to the Adventures of Mac and Anthea. As you can probably guess from the title of the video, I've got more inverter problems and we're currently left without power at the house. If you follow the channel, you may recall a previous video I made about 3 months ago called Solar Inverter Problems, where I actually had to replace the cooling fan. That took about 7 days, including the weekend, to arrive. We were left without power for about 10 days. This time it's been a bit more serious. We developed a problem. I've ordered the parts ready for it to come, and this time it's taken just over 3 weeks. Probably one of the worst experiences I've had with AliExpress ever. Not due to them, no fault of theirs, but actually the seller. So I'll probably talk about that a bit more later. So let's quickly go over to the solar shed and examine the problem that we've got. Okay, so we're into the solar inverter shed here. This is the unit that I actually replaced the fan on, and afterwards it's working really well. I was left actually tweaking the individual settings to squeeze the maximum I could out of the unit. This is something I'll probably make a video on at a later date. But anyway, yeah, I started after about 3 months experiencing the problem. Now, the problem was, what was happening is the solar panels would come on in the morning when the sun came up, and the actual unit was supplying power to the house, but it wasn't recharging the batteries, even though when we had full power midday, probably about 1,400 watts, it was only really shooting 30 watts through to the house for, you know, our basic needs, and wasn't recharging the batteries. Okay, so now I'm actually running these Dynas batteries, which for the most part are brilliant. What I really like about these lithium batteries is you can put the inverter in straight away, but you don't have to learn how to use the settings, which can be quite complex, you know, learning all the individual settings and everything. And if you do make a mistake, you know, it doesn't kill the batteries, it doesn't affect the batteries. A classic example of it is actually the default setting on this unit for recharging is 60 amps, whereas these batteries are only designed to receive 45 amps. Now that doesn't matter because the batteries have got their own battery management system, and if too much power goes to them, it just cuts it down to the correct power. So that's the good thing about these batteries. There is one very slight downside, and that is when things go wrong, you're not really so easy to diagnose whether it's the batteries or the unit. What was happening was, you know, the inverter wasn't charging the batteries. So what's the problem? Is it a problem with the brain in the inverter not sensing properly from the batteries, or is it a problem with the brain in the batteries saying, oh, we don't need charging? So I sort of stuck with that, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But what I did find is if I switch the batteries off, switch them back on, then they start charging. Now that was okay whilst I was here, but when I was away for a couple of days, they run right down. Thankfully, again, the battery management system stopped them discharging too far and shut down the system. But when I got back and come to spark it up again, it wouldn't work at all. And this is what I found was happening. I'll just stick open, switch this unit on now, and put power onto the inverter. Now, as far as sparking up, whether it's connected to the batteries or not, it should still spark up and work and have power going through to it. But as you can see, it's just happened there. That's shutting off, and that shouldn't do that. That should, as long as there's power coming in from the solar, regardless whether it's connected to anything else, that should stay sparked up and working like that. And there you can see that's just resetting it again. So I'll just switch it off again, get rid of that annoying buzzing. So that basically did the job of diagnosing what the fault was. It finally gave up the ghost completely, inverter, and by the looks of things, it's looking like it's the inverter's the problem and not the batteries. So, okay, let's go and have a look at the solution I've got to repair this. Okay, so this is the solution. I'm not messing about with that inverter anymore. I've decided to buy a new one. Originally, that old inverter, I had that sat under the bed for a couple of years, and it was an end of line when I bought it. It was on offer, and so it wasn't the latest model even then. And of course, back then that was like 680. These ones now is a higher spec. It's got all the Wi-Fi built in. It's a powerful one. This is 6,200 watts, and this is coming in at 320 euros. So, you know, it's just for that money, it's just not worth messing about anymore. So I've gone straight in and I bought this new inverter. Now, how good the inverter is, I don't know. I mean, I've done a bit of research and I picked good write-ups. But the supplier of this, supposedly in France, was absolutely horrendous. So let's hope that the actual unit is better than the actual supplier of the unit. And let's see about getting this in. So back round to the shed, we're going to start by disconnecting all these wires. I've switched off to the solar panels there, so everything's off here. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to mount it a bit higher, because one of the errors I did make is I made this a bit too close to here, and the cooling fans are in here, and when the covers are on this, it obstructs the airflow a bit. So I'm going to do it a bit higher. It isn't perfect for reading at eye level, but this new one actually comes with Wi-Fi and actually a Wi-Fi adapter as well. So I should be able to monitor everything from inside instead of having to come out to the shed like I used to do. So I think we'll get these wires disconnected all from these fuses and get this unit off the wall. What I've done now is I've put all the fuses down. Now, I know a lot of these systems you've probably seen, and I've talked about this in the past, resemble something like the Bridge off the Battleship Enterprise with boxes and flashing lights all over the place. My personal opinion, you don't need all that crap. It's just something else to go wrong. And you certainly don't need a solar panel isolation switch, a big switch on the side here. If you go into a fuse here, what's the point? You flick the fuse off and power's off to the old system. So all the fuses are off, and I'm going to start by taking this side cover off here, so that I can get to the connections to release this unit. 2 little grub screws. That's off. Okay, and then we've got all our wires here at the top. So loosen all them. And for some reason we've got a flat edge screw on the solar power cables in, and then we've just got the power cables to the battery to come. Okay, so they're all released, so I'm going to give it a little tug down. If you pan down to here, you can see that I've actually disconnected all the cables from the batteries, so the batteries aren't connected in any way either. Okay, comms cable off. You've just got one earth I've got to try and get you from here, but it ain't going to be so easy. Yeah, that isn't going to be easy, so I'm just going to snip that. Okay, so I'm just going to snip the earth cable. There we go, it's out. What have we got at the top? And that's the unit off and completely free. Okay, so that's both the units out. Looking on here straight away, the only real problem I can see is that the PV input on the old one here is on the right hand side here, and on the other unit it's sort of part of this. So the cables from this fuse box inside the shed are going to have to sort of be ducted through into the fuse box to make it neat up here. I hate conduit everywhere, and unnecessary conduit. I'd rather get it behind walls and inducting if I can. Or tucked away, into fuse boxes. So, okay, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to remove all the wires in the shed, and then start replacing with new ones, because obviously we want it this time, we want this higher up the wall. Okay, so I'm going to start taking these wires out from the fuses. So we'll remove these. This is where the inverter feeds the house. Okay, we'll leave the earths in, leave the batteries in, and then we're going to take these 2 leads out, which come from the PV panels to the inverter. That's that done. So what I need to do is re-drill some holes further up so we can get our unit higher this time, away from these fuse boxes, so the fans have got airflow. Apparently they've got to be 20 centimetres apart. So we'll have to spark up the generator, get them drilled, and then get that new unit up on the wall. Okay, so I'm going to do this 30 centimetres higher just to be sure. Makes it quite high, unfortunately. So, go up from that hole. Okay, level across there. And then they need to be 20 centimetres apart. That's it, done. 2 holes there. Okay, we're on. We'll just tweak up these screws. Okay, starting off. Okay, so now we're on to the wires. I'm going to start with a new earth wire for safety. New one from here, the one we cut, taking it up. And that's just going to screw onto the chassis of the actual inverter. Then I'm going to do all the power from the inverter to the house, because obviously there's no power in the inverter at the minute. It's brand new, so there's no power now. I'll do that next. Then I shall do the utility connection, which isn't a grid connection, it's actually a backup generator. I shall do that into the box, so there's no power in any of that system at all. And lastly then I think I should do the battery connections, and then lastly I shall probably do the actual solar panel connection as a last resort, because obviously that's going to have power as soon as I put this switch on. Okay, so I put up a length of cable, a ring connector on there, and a bit of heat shrink. Just insulate on there, so let's go and get that on. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put this earth loop on here, but I've stripped a little bit of the cable away here just to make it a bit tidier, because we got an earth inside here as well. So I'm going to make sure that screws fully out. We'll feed that right up into the earth section of the inverter. That's a good tight connection, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this little ring here. And connect it so the actual chassis of the inverter is earthed as well. Doing it that way I think just makes it look a little bit more tidier. As you can see from there, that's quite neat and tidy down there, and that's just got to come down into this block here. So we'll put it through. Probably going to end up in around like that, so we'll cut that about there. Now, I've seen in the past, I actually dipped all these in solder, so it's a solid contact, and so that the wire doesn't get flayed out or make a loose contact. I just think I'm going to be careful with my connections this time and not bother with that, because it's quite a long-winded job, and I don't really see anybody else doing it. Okay, so that's our earthing. Okay, so I bought new cable, a metre each of 6mm and a metre each of 10mm. Now, normally in the UK, obviously you'd have a black cable for your negative and a red cable for your positive. The coding is different here in Spain. They use a blue cable for negative and a black cable for the positive. Being as we're in Spain, we're going to keep to Spanish coding, so anybody who examines it in the future who may be a Spanish electrician knows what he's doing with it. So now we're going to fit the actual the mains, which is basically our backup generator, our utility. We're going to cut those wires up. What I've done is I've stripped them along and I've folded them in half, because there's plenty of room actually in these connections to get them in double, just to make sure we get a really good connection. So first of all, we've got live, which of course in Spain is going to be our black. We'll tuck that right up into there, and then negative, AC in, straight up into there again. And I'm just going to leave them hang for now. I'm going to do the same with AC out, which I use 10mm, because there's 10mm going from the fuse to the house. It's quite a long stretch. We could end up drawing power not only from the solar through those cables, but also from the generator as well. So a lot more power can end up going through them. So as standard, I normally use 10mm. So being as we're going from the fuse to the house in 10mm, we need to go from the inverter to the fuse in 10mm. Hope that makes sense. Okay, and now we're on to our PV, our solar panel cables. These are double insulated. I bought them with Connect because that was the cheapest way to buy them from Amazon. Otherwise I would have had to buy the cable in 3 metre lengths. It would have worked out more expensive. I only need a metre, and these short connectors come in 1 metre lengths. So all I'm going to do here is take the end, cut the connectors off, and we use them like that. Okay, and now I'm doing exactly the same again. These are these cables, and obviously they're double insulated to reduce power loss actually from the solar panels to the inverter. But I've doubled them up to make sure I get a good connection again. And again, it's just a repeat, slide it up, wind this screw out just a tad until it slots up into it. There it goes, right up into it, and then a good tight connection there. done. Now I'm just going to repeat that with a negative, and then we'll be ready to start making the connections down in the box. Okay, so now we're going on to AC in, which is a 6mm cable. I've taken it down there through the top of the box. I'm taking it round to the bottom of the fuse because in the top of this fuse here, this is the cables coming in which go out through here, down through here, and out to the generator. So the feed needs to go to the top of the fuse, and the feed is the generator. Whereas the outlet to the appliance in this case being the inverter, needs to come out the bottom. So we're just going to connect blue to obviously negative and black to the other connector, which is, so obviously that has to be live. Okay, so this time we're going to do the actual AC out of the inverter. Unlike the AC in where the generator is a supplier and it's the inverter that's being supplied, this is now the reverse. It's the inverter supplying the power to the house. So that means then the cables need to go into the top of the fuse on this occasion instead of the bottom, because the inverter is a supply. All supplies should go into the top, and then anything that's supplying should come out the bottom. Okay, so I'll connect those two up and then we'll go on to the next stage. So as you can see, we've now got those connected into there. So that's that done. We've got the PV cables, the solar power cables, so we're going to go into the inverter to connect, but we're going to leave them till last because really at present that's the only power source coming into the system at the minute. So we'll connect that up as the last thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect these battery leads up. They'll go straight up through the top here, and they'll connect up into the socket here with negative and live battery. I'm disconnected up the battery here. See, they're disconnected there and there. So we've got no power, any possible power that's left the batteries, there's no way that can go in and give us any shocks. Now you might be wondering why I've actually took these leads in through the bottom, straight for the fuse box and out the top. It's just me like to try and keep things neat and tidy. I should put some conduit down to here and send up the battery pack later, and obviously some conduit up here to protect these wires. I don't like wires hanging out all over the place, or even surface wiring at all if I can get away with it. Okay, so let's get on to the next stage. Okay, so just one little final connection we're going to do up into here. I don't know if you can see it. We're going to take the comms cable which goes from the inverter to the battery setup, and we're going to plug that in. Now that's going to go into RS485 connection. There's two connections there, so we'll plug that in. The other connection, the RS232, is the one for the Wi-Fi dongle thing, which we'll put on later. That's just get some power to the house. We'll worry about Wi-Fi later on. Okay, so that wire's in. So we'll go down to the batteries and connect up to the battery. So our top battery is going to be our master battery. So we'll plug in, and I've lost a little cable. I'm going to find a little cable and I'll get back. Okay, found the little cable. So out on the master battery to in on the slave battery. That's that bit done. Okay, so now we've got those comms in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave the cables for the batteries. I think I'm going to test the inverter first. So in order to do that, we've just got to make our final connection of the PV, the solar power cables from the inverter to the solar power, the solar panel fuse, and then we should be good to go, barring just one last final check to double check our connections. Okay, so as before, we've got our solar power fuse here. These two wires are solar power panels above, so obviously they're supplying, they're the feed, and therefore they're going to be feeding the inverter, so they need to be wired, and the inverter needs to be wired into the bottom of this fuse. So we'll do that, and then we should be ready for a quick test. Okay, so we've just made that final connection. I've left a little in all these wires because I probably want to feed them up into conduit a little bit, and you know, they'll all need sort of bunching up into here and that. So I'm going to do a quick cable check. It's basically just checking, you know, you've got your negative going into the right thing and your live all the way along here. That all those cables are going into the right negative and live on all the fuses, which they are. That the colours match up, sort of blue and blue, black, black, black all the way along here. And yeah, on that check there, it looks like I've made a mistake. Just as well we did check, because look, I'm thinking black's live because I've just been doing the house one, but it's not on the solar powers. So those two need changing back round. Just as well we checked. Okay, so we've switched these wires back round. These systems are actually protected against reversing the polarity, but hey, why test it when you haven't got to? Incidentally, anybody might be wondering what this is a surge protection here. We get a lot of thunderstorms here, and This is to protect if the lightning hits the solar panels. You see there's a great big thick cable going through here out of that, and that goes all the way along to a thick copper earthing rod which goes down into the ground. Okay, so one less check around, check and double check, and then we'll spark this inverter up and see if it's going to work. Okay, so we're ready for our test. Checked everything, the batteries are still disconnected for now, and I'm just going to connect the solar panels actually to the inverter. Now, it should really spark up straight away, even with it out being switched on, which it is. Okay, and I'll just flick on the on switch. That sounds right. Now, I think what we're going to do, we should have quite a good lot of voltage going in this. We're midday, so we should have about 1,400 watts, something like that. I'm just going to put the power onto the house and see if we've got some, because it's meant to power the house without the batteries. So let's have a little go at that. That's this little guy here. Let's go in the house and see if we've got power. Okay, success. We've got power back inside the house there. Okay, there's obviously no batteries charging or anything like that because we haven't got the batteries connected. To test these batteries individually before to see if it's a battery problem or an inverter problem, I was swapping them back into all combinations, changing which one was master battery and what isn't. So I'm going to refer back to the manual and just double check which way these cables go on, just to be sure before I connect these batteries in. So I'll just go and check that and I'll bring you back in a minute and we'll make that connection. Okay, so I've shut everything back down again. I've referred to the instructions and wired this back in, so hopefully that's correct. So that's sparked the system up. Let's see how we go. So that's solar power's back onto the inverter. I'm going to switch the inverter on. Hopefully we've got power back to the house again. Now let's try the batteries. Yeah, and the other one's automatically kicked in as well. And they're flashing on and off, which indicates that they're charging. Good morning and welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks since I first fitted the new inverter, and I've been trying it and testing it and monitoring it to see if I get the best out of it. In conclusion, I found that we're actually 280 watts better off, basically more efficient with this new inverter. Originally, my old one, I'd normally get like 1,320 watts was sort of the max I'd get out of it. Now I'm getting 1,600, so it's a good, a lot more efficiency coming actually out of this new inverter. Now, the new inverter, whilst I think it's pretty good, but obviously it needs to stand the test of time. The company I got it from were pretty bad. They did 3 to 7 days delivery, supposedly from France to Spain. In the end, it took 3 weeks. And at the start of the third week, after not getting any communication from them, I thought, right, well, this isn't going well. I'll have to order another inverter from another supplier. Now, eventually, the inverter did come from this company. When I finally threatened to go for a refund, they decided that they were going to communicate with me then. They looked into it. They said, I need to contact the transport people. So I said, no, I don't. You contact them. You hire them. You chase it up. And it turns out that the actual inverter was left at a collection point, not the address, my address, where they were meant to deliver to. Which was bad enough, if I wanted to go to a shop and queue and collect something, I'd just go and buy the inverter from a shop. What's the point? That's the whole point of buying something over the internet. But it wouldn't have been so bad if they'd actually told me. Nobody contacted me to tell me, no, we're not going to deliver it to your house, we've left it at a collection point. No one said anything. So it sort of sat down there in the next village, sort of 6 kilometres away. And I didn't know anything about it, and I was sat up home here with no electric. But by the by, that company's not any good. I shall put their name above here so that they can be avoided at all costs in the future. Don't use this company. I should probably put the name of the other company that was good here as well now. They actually delivered within the 7 days that they promised. No problem. It came 2 days. The replacement one inverter came 2 days after the first one I ordered, which is pretty typical. I mean, we all knew that was going to happen, didn't we? Okay, so let's go and have a quick look at what I've done with the inverter. I've finished all the conduit and that. Let's go have a quick look at that. Okay, so we're back in the solar power shed. If you look closely here, you can actually see that is charging the third quarter on both these batteries now. To give you some idea how well solar power does actually work, I'm just going to spin you round Look how great it is today. I mean, there's sort of the sun up there somewhere behind there, but it's still actually charging, which I think is pretty good. It's been a bit of a surprise to me because I thought, you know, any grey days we were going to be completely stuffed and not be getting anything at all. But anyway, here we go. This is the inverter. It's all working fine. I've put the conduit in, which I'm sure I've mentioned in the past. I'm not a big fan of conduit. I originally put all the wires in behind the plaster in the wall in ducts so that they can be threaded backwards and forwards. But I didn't allow for having to put in a backup generator, which these wires go to outside there, plus a really thick cable, which is a lightning earthing cable for the solar panels, just in case we get struck by lightning. So we get a lot of storms here. Also, I had to put the inverter higher up to clear these fans, which I didn't originally plan for. So now I've got this, and this taking all the wires up. And then, of course, I've got the conduit going down to the batteries. But to be fair, I mean, it looks tidy enough, I suppose. Now, also what I've fitted on this one is the dongle for the Wi-Fi. I've just sort of glued some of these things to keep it tidy up the side here. And the dongle, I've just rested it on top. It seems to be pretty good, and I'll spin it around so you can see the lights on it. It seems to be working pretty good, especially when you consider sort of this wall's 1/2 metre thick. And the roof is sort of 25 centimetres thick of concrete as well. And, you know, the actual routers inside the house there. Now, one thing I will mention a bit more about these dongles. Probably just me, lack of knowledge, but I found it quite difficult to connect to it. I was messing about with it for a couple of hours. I watched various videos and read instructions. But I didn't find it as clear. And one thing I will say to you now is when you connect this dongle, it's probably obvious to you guys, but it wasn't to me. It's a bit like when if you've got an action camera and you want to use Wi-Fi, you have to search the network, available networks, and actually find the dongle on those available networks, and then connect to that. Now, I was having problems with that because I was connecting to it and trying to go through all the process of doing it, and then it was bouncing me out of it. My new phone, because it had no Wi-Fi, no internet, it was taking me out of it automatically and going on then onto a one that did have, you know, Wi-Fi and internet. Now, so I wasn't managing to get everything loaded onto this dongle and set up properly. Now, I could have gone into my new phone and probably found out how to stop it doing that, but that would have meant another search and it was going off in another direction. So what I did in the end is I just got my old mobile phone, which had no SIMs in it. It didn't bounce me out of it, and I actually set it up with my old mobile phone. And then once I set it up, you know, it's just a case of accessing the account for whatever device I wanted. So yeah, just a note on that, you know, you do need to connect to it via networks, the actual dongle, and then follow instructions from there. If you find, you know, it keeps on bouncing you out, you may have to take the SIMs out your phone or use a tablet or different device. I think it's more or less, you know, all I can say on that. I didn't film it because, like I said, I was messing about with it for a couple of hours. So hopefully that's going to bring to an end the saga of the solar inverter. I've been in touch with AliExpress, who I got it through. I wasn't getting any joy from the buyer to get some sort of a refund on this. To be fair to them, they have offered that I'll return the unit, but of course that's on the wall and it's fitted. I'm not going to return the second unit because obviously the company did as agreed, you know, so why should they suffer because of the first company? So I'm going to keep hold of that. Now, I do plan to actually fit another system down at the farm, quite a large system, because of having a workshop down there in the future. So it's not a complete loss. It will get used. As for AliExpress, I have been experiencing a bit of problems with them, you know, shipping coming late. I don't know if it's because it's a busy time of year or whether the EU are having a bit of a paddy with them at the minute, as you've probably seen in the news, and that's sort of slowing things down for customers. But I have been quite a few slow deliveries, so unfortunately at the minute, especially as, you know, I didn't really get a decent resolution from them that was satisfactory to me anyway. I've had to put AliExpress on a €30 cap per seller, so I won't be buying any large purchases from them. And certainly if you guys do, I advise you get in touch with the seller, get them to actually confirm the message that they do have stock, EU stock, in the warehouse ready for immediate shipping. So you're not getting the situation where they're telling you you've got stock and then they quickly try and bring it over from China and then ship it from somewhere in France. You don't want that situation, which is what I suspect happened with me. So anyway, I think that's enough rattling on by me. I think all that remains is to thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.